Hello. Well, if you weren't awake before, you're awake now. Sorry about that. Yeah, this is the way it is now. Nice, huh? I splashed some water on my face because it's hotter than heck in here, and so I thought I'd give you a little surprise just to kick off things. Philadelphia and Pennsylvania all over, but Philadelphia in particular is in phase green now, so the hair places are open, but I'm not going just yet because I'm still feeling a little antsy about things. I saw a map a couple of days ago that said Pennsylvania was on the uptick in terms of infection. And there was another thing I saw yesterday that said that Pennsylvania was spiking. And I'm not sure what the metric is between uptick and spiking. I'm not sure where the number is, where they're going. It's going up. It's going up. Wow, too far, too fast. But in any case, I'm not sure it really matters for me at the very least, because it could be 5,000 new cases a day, it could be 500 new cases a day, could be 5 new cases a day. The operative term there is new cases on this day. And since I am in an at-risk group, I'm being very, very, very cautious about how things are going. In terms of how it goes for my profession, you probably have seen that California has announced that they're shutting back down again. That includes movie theaters. And since the theater chain I work at is keeping an eye on New York and Los Angeles to determine what they're going to be doing, since those are really the two major markets. New York has already announced that live theater is going to be shut down until 2021, at least Broadway theater is, and I'm presuming that means all other off-Broadway theaters are as well. And I'm also presuming that applies to movie theaters. And now Los Angeles has shut down. So this does not bode well for the movie theaters opening in August, which I'm fine with. As I say, kind of cautious about it. I did see an ad for Warner Brothers Tenet last night, which once again is the canary in the coal mine as far as theatrical releases are concerned. They're still advertising mid-August as the theatrical release. I think that's going to change sometime soon. I'm thinking that movie theaters are really not going to get going this summer. It's going to be in the fall, which is fine by me. And don't worry about us as far as things are going. We're doing okay here otherwise. So I would like to get back to work, but I can write it out if it calls for that. So anyway, welcome to Dan Records and Hour of the Wolf Review. I'm Dan Persons. Hi there. Hope you are doing well. I do have a review to read. It's going to be an interesting situation, which you'll hear more about once I do record the review. Just so you know, in terms of the scheduling of these things, that's going to be changing now, if you haven't already noticed. I started this out doing it weekly, largely because at that point, the radio show Hour of the Wolf had gone on temporary hiatus because of the pandemic. And so I wanted to do something to just sort of keep the torch lit pretty much, and provide some continuity for people who are going, well, has Hour of the Wolf gone away? No, it hasn't. And Jim Freund wasn't going to let that happen anyway. But So I started doing it weekly. I also started doing it admittedly because I wanted to keep my hands in as a critic. So it served a double purpose. But now that the show has gone to a bi-weekly episode, if you're watching this, the newest episode has just aired on August 18th, July 18th, this weekend, and this is the follow-up to that show. And the next show is going to be August 1st, or it should be, unless they either put it on permanent not permanent, but temporary hiatus again, or they go back to a weekly schedule. I certainly hope they go back to a weekly schedule, but I don't think they're pushing for that. So August 1st should be the next time you see the show. In any case, I'm going to do this review now. I was sitting down before I got up just to do that intro because I need my exercise. And but here, we're going to do this. Let me take a hit of water. And once more, if you're new to the game, let me explain that what I am doing here is recording a review for the radio show Hour of the Wolf, which airs on WBAI 99.5 FM at 5 a.m. on Saturday, every other Saturday, as I say. This weekend, July 18th, was the most recent one. Next one is going to be August 1st. If you missed this weekend's show, you can go to WBAI.org and go into the archives and track down the show, and it'll be worth your while. So, a few technical notes about this. What you hear on Hour of the Wolf with my review is the edited version of what I'm going to do now, with all the stumbles and sentence rereadings and all of that edited out. This is how the sausage gets made, with all the flaws intact. This is Hour of the Wolf review uncut, literally. And also, once I start up the recorder here, I am going to just sort of sit still for a few seconds to record the room tone, so that when I actually edit this down, I can use a filter in my editing software to tamp down the room tone that gets recorded just a little bit. It isn't perfect, but we do what we can. And so that, I think, is it. Let's get down to it. The other thing is, you're going to hear me say take two. That's because I tried recording this earlier, and I kept getting interrupted by, weirdly enough, the phone that I'm recording this video on, which kept signaling me, which I thought it couldn't do while it was recording video. But apparently the phone had other ideas. So this is my second go at it. Second time's a charm. In this case, I hope. But let's do it. And the recorder is running. And let me slate this. Hour of the Wolf review, air date July 18th, 2020. The Midnight Gospel. Take two. It's two. Peace, brother. Room tone. I'm Dan Persons, and this is my Hour of the Wolf review. Okay, I'm going to be blunt here. The Midnight Gospel, the new animated series by Adventure Time creator Pendleton Ward, debuted on Netflix in April. I watched it then, tore through it eagerly, in fact, and have been dragging my feet about reviewing it ever since. Not that it's bad. Oh no, no way. But it's difficult. And to be frank, I think the difficulty is not in how Ward has presented the show, as in my incapacity to fully grasp its intent. So this may be one of those reviews that reveals more about the reviewer than about the topic in question. But nothing else particularly compelling presented itself for reviewing this week. I found the new action fantasy series Warrior Nun kind of boring, and J.G. Quintel's new show Close Enough, which just debuted on HBO Max, feels like his regular show, goosed with adult content and language, at least for the one episode I watched. At least for the one episode I watched. The irony there is that both Adventure Time and regular show originally debuted at the same time on Cartoon Network, and in watching these sophomore efforts, you get a good impression of where both creators now want to take their careers. Ward, I think, comes off more ambitious in this regard. In any case, despite my reluctance, I have wanted to talk about the Midnight Gospel. So, in any case, despite my reluctance, I have wanted to talk about the Midnight Gospel. So I'm sucking it up and giving it a go. Hang on, it may be a bumpy ride. The setup behind the Midnight Gospel is that there's this guy, Clancy, voiced by comedian Duncan Trussell, who has exiled himself to an otherworldly realm known as the Ribbon, taking with him a contraband virtual reality simulator. At the prompting of the simulator's AI, emphatically voiced by Phil Hendry, Clancy transports himself to virtual alt Earths and interviews people there for what he calls his space cast, essentially an intergalactic podcast that has as many as a whopping two subscribers. I can empathize. And here's where things get complicated. Duncan Trussell, the voice of Clancy, happens to have his own podcast where he interviews people frequently on spiritual topics. Pendleton Ward is a fan of these podcasts. He's appeared on at least one episode himself and has taken these conversations and used them as the audio track for visuals that frequently have only tangential connection to what's being discussed. So you'll have Dr. Drew Pinsky discussing the efficacy of psychotropics while okay. Okay, I delved into that at the wrong direction. Let me do that again. So you'll have Dr. Drew Pinsky discussing the efficacy of psychotropics, while on screen, as the little president, he's fighting off a zombie apocalypse. Or the West Memphis Three's Damien Eccles talking about his time in jail and how his belief in magic helped him survive, while Ward has cast him as a fish in a bowl on top of a human body, going on a quest for magical objects to awaken a sleeping giant, pretty much just to settle an old score. It should be said that Ward, who directs each episode, does incredible work here. The visuals have a similar, deceptively childlike simplicity. Deceptively childlike simplicity to Adventure Time, but now each colorful frame seems crammed with detail and peripheral action. There are frequent references. Oh, sorry about that. There are frequent references to Yellow Submarine and there are frequent references to Yellow Submarine. Yum yum. There are frequent references to Yellow Submarine. Why am I stumbling on Yellow Submarine? Submarine. Some enchanted evening. I don't know where that came from. Okay. There are frequent references to Yellow Submarine. There are frequent references. This is the way it goes sometimes. I don't think it's ever been this bad before, but yeah, there are days when I can spend a half hour on a sentence. Hopefully, we're going to do it right now. Let's do it right now. There are frequent references to Yellow Submarine. There are frequent references to Yellow Submarine, and even, I think, The Thief and the Cobbler. And Clancy is not merely a naive seeker. He's stubborn, self-involved, self-deluded, He's stubborn, self-involved, self-deluded, deluded. He's stubborn, self-involved, self-deluded, and irresponsible. There's definite DNA shared here between Clancy and Adventure Time's flawed protagonists, but without the buffering or the censored. But without the buffering or the censored dialogue needed for a kid audience. But without the buffering or the censored dialogue needed for a kid audience. My voice is cracking. I'm not happy with it, but I'm pushing on because we got to. Needed for a kid audience. But what is Ward trying to do with this? I'm frankly amazed that this is on Netflix. As a concept, this would be challenging even for the Adult Swim audience. Ward clearly finds value in Trussell's conversations and wants to present them through his own lens. But the contrapuntal nature of the visuals is so in opposition to the audio that it tends to overwhelm. But the contrapuntal nature of the visuals is so in opposition to the audio that it tends to overwhelm. There's a reason why the cardinal rule of film is show, don't tell. Processing sight is tremendously demanding for the human brain, to the considerable exclusion of the other senses. So, in film, if you want to get across an idea, best way to do it is through the eye bone, not the ear bone. And if you have to convey by audio, it's best to amplify the visuals so the brain can turn its attention to what it's hearing. Did I say amplify? Let me go back. And if you have to convey by audio, it's best to simplify the visuals so the brain can turn its attention to what it's hearing. When the animation is this colorful, this intricate, the audio and whatever meaning it's intended to convey tends to recede into the background. I suspect Ward is aware of this and has decided to fly in the face of conventional wisdom and follow his muse. I'm not particularly opposed to I'm not particularly opposed to the tactic. There's a lot in the Midnight Gospel about there's a lot in there's a lot in the Midnight Gospel about opening yourself up, particularly to things that might challenge your preconceptions. The show as structured is definitely challenging, at least for me. I'm not really multitasking kind of guy. You're telling me. By the way, one of the problems here, and forgive my grossness, but I'm phlegming up a little bit, and I don't know why, but I'm fighting that. And I apologize. I'm not really a multitasking kind of guy. So while a part of me was feeling that this wasn't really working, another part was going, yeah, bring it on. As I said, I tore through all 8 episodes eagerly. In fact, I did it not just once, but a second time just this week, since it has been 4 months since my first exposure. And I rewatched it happily, enjoying it as much the second time as I did the first. That's kind of unusual. I liken the Midnight Gospel to music, which can frequently bear repeating, as opposed to narrative storytelling, which is not as inclined to repeated consumption. I'll say this, if there is a second season, and I hope there is, I'll come back to it eagerly, because it is fascinating and challenging, and frequently delightful. In fact, I'll go the extra step and do something I try not to do, because I hate those critics who go, run to your theater and see it now. That's not my job. But I'm going to say, if you have Netflix, give The Midnight Gospel a shot. I'd be interested in hearing from people about their reactions, maybe on the Hour of the Wolf Facebook page, or you can email the show using jim@ourwolf.com. That's jim@ourwolf.com, and start the subject line with midnight. So and start the subject line with midnight. And start the subject line with midnight, so the email gremlins know to forward it to me. Because, confounding or not, the Midnight Gospel is worth the effort. For Hour of the Wolf, I'm Dan Persons. Got through it. Did get through it. Yay me. Yay everybody. We all need a little boost. Emotionally, so go us. And you may notice that I dropped the pitch for donating to charities because apparently WBAI isn't allowing that to happen right at the moment. So fine. Let me put it in here. I mean, if you can, there are people who are still in need. Donate to a charity that's helping with the pandemic. Donate to a charity that's helping with Black Lives Matter. Donate anywhere that you think is going to help. And I hope you enjoyed that, whatever the case, as flawed and awkward as it was. And let me shut down the recorder here. Okay, there we go. Yes, so I hope you are doing well. I hope everything is good with you, or if things are not so good with you, I hope things do get better for you, because we're all going through a rough patch at this point. And let me just say, if you like this, you can click the like button on the YouTube page. And if you want to see more of me, if you think you can bear it, please do subscribe. We've also got some 3D videos coming out that you might want to check as well. Okay, enough of that. Take care, please. Be well, please. And I'll see you another time. Thanks.